Thank you, everyone. This club, the numbers are disproportionate to the good we do in this community. We do a lot of good, and one of the things we do is the community grant program. The people on the committee are Jean Ann Kirby, Parveen Chan, Greg Fennig, Duke Haddig, Mike Halstead, Trina Rodebush, and Peter Sheik. So these are the grants that we're going to be awarding this year. Brooks Place for ongoing grief support groups. Each of these grants are $2,500. Crystal House for preschool enrichment programs. Edna Martin Christian Center for the Youth Leadership Council. Freewheeling Community Bikes for the Green Apron Earn a Bike program. And advanced bicycle mechanics classes. So they get to earn their way to getting their own bike, which has just been a great program. Friends of Garfield Park, a fall break adventure and sport camp. Indianapolis Public Library Foundation for On the Road to Reading. Pack Away Hunger, which is hunger education and learning. And then after the St. Florian Center does after school programs and leadership development camp. The Storytelling Arts of Indiana, which is storytelling at summer day camps. And TeenWorks, which is summer programs. And Bob, you were on this committee too. I'm looking at you and I'm thinking you were there. Pat couldn't make it, so my apologies. I overlooked your name, my apologies. The other thing that we decided to do this year with the grants was to take the extra that we had and dedicate that to the Salvation Army. And I believe that is about $4,000. So that's normally that's what we do, but we're going to take that money to the Salvation Army, which is a great segue for me to introduce Captain Vinyl Lee. So, yes, ma'am.
May I ask, since we have two Kiwanis that are on the Red Kettle campaign, when we donate that money to the Salvation Army, can we designate it for the 2022 Red Kettle?
I don't know why we can't.
Yeah, I don't.
Final, so sure, go ahead. I don't do that program, but you go ahead.
Not a decision I can make, so yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
So Duke Dad, just tell him that is coming, thanks to Carol and Pat, and you to the Red Kettle.
I think we can add that to our total. So Captain Lee is somebody that I've had the pleasure of working with, and we are very lucky to have he and his family here in Indiana. He has served as executive leader for the Army for nearly a decade, previously serving in Madison, Indiana, and completing the Salvation Army Training College. He has served as community liaison for local and city governments on matters of addiction, homelessness, and human trafficking. Vinyl and his wife currently serve as pastor and director of the Fountain Square Corps, and they are also the liaisons for the Salvation Army Johnson County, or actually the director. They serve youth and families all over central Indiana, helping families discover safe alternatives and after-school activities, and helping those with active addiction find recovery through the next work of the Salvation Army Recovery Resources. I know we talk a lot about the Salvation Army, but when it comes to the kind of work that they do with addiction, the combination of caring and faith and smart psychology and behavior management and helping people through addiction makes it probably the most effective addiction recovery program that's out there. So I'm going to turn it over to you. We're not here to talk about the Salvation Army, although I could, and you could do it better, but we are here to celebrate the generosity of this club.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
So, in addition to what Karen has already shared, you go under fierce competition with another club who will go unnamed, just to keep the space sacred. But from my understanding, this has been a long time tradition, and you have once again bested the Rotary Club in your Red Kettle endeavors, meaning that you have raised more than what they did. What I think is actually quite interesting is the fact that this award is a golden kettle. At Fountain Square, we award a golden kettle each morning to a bell ringer whose behavior we would like to see replicated. We treat it something as like a game ball that you would receive in sports. So when bell ringers are having a hard time showing up, when kettle totals are down, whatever that may be, we look for the worker who is doing the things that we want repeated, and they get the gold kettle. And I think that's an excellent example, I think, for me, of what this represents for you, is a service organization going out and doing the work that we would love to see repeated across the community. So thank you for setting the example of what it means to give back to your community. And with that, this becomes yours.
You know, I'm all about the kids, and it's not about the competition. It's all about doing better. So here's to the club.
It does make it sweeter. We are so fortunate today. We have an outstanding guest to address us today. I was so excited to learn that you were going to be on our program today. This is Howard Kellman's 47th year as the play-by-play announcer of the Indianapolis Indians. His illustrious career behind the microphone features these accolades: Indiana's Sportscaster of the Year in 2002, Indiana Sports Writers and Sportscasters Association Hall of Fame, inductee in 2009, Indiana Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame inductee in 2015, and Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame inductee in 2018. Howard has interviewed star athletes from Michael Jordan to Pete Rose. He has broadcast for 8 championship baseball teams, the second most of any announcer in baseball history. He majored in radio and television at Brooklyn College. Howard, thank you for being here, and welcome.
Thank you so much. And when people mention those Hall of Fame inductions, it's very important, and you did it right. One time I had a guy reading it, and the U looked like an I to him, so instead of being inducted, he said I was indicted. There's a difference between a U and an I, so I'm honored to be here. It's always a pleasure. Opening day at Victory Field is April 5th, less than 4 weeks away. People are watching one basketball story now. People are watching college basketball, obviously, this time of the year. ESPN has a lot of games. One of ESPN's commentators is Bill Walton. And Bill Walton was a great player. As many of you know, he was a 2-time national champion at UCLA, NBA champion with the Portland Trailblazers and the Boston Celtics, teammate of Larry Bird's with the Celtics. As an announcer, he's off the wall. He'll say anything in any situation. Any of you have ever seen him on ESPN? So anyway, one night he's announcing an ESPN college basketball game with John Sciambi. And the play-by-play guy, John Sciambi, and other play-by-play guys who work with him are like, oh, what's he gonna say next? So out of the clear blue, Bill Walton says to John Sciambi, do you know what Eleanor Roosevelt used to say? John Sciambi's like, oh, okay, Bill, what did Eleanor Roosevelt used to say? And Bill Walton said, Eleanor Roosevelt used to say that every day you should do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And John Sciambi said, I'm in the middle of doing that right now. But there is something to be said about getting out of your comfort zone. That's what great ball players, great athletes do, great business people do. You get out, you push yourself. It's the difference between being involved and being committed, giving it that little something extra. Quick story on Larry Bird on that comfort zone. When he was a young man growing up in French Lick, he was a teenager, he went out and practiced, and he came back in after a couple of hours. He started to walk inside the house, and he thought to himself, wait a minute, there's somebody out there still practicing. So Larry Bird went back outside and practiced for 2 more hours. what he realized at a young age, that whether it's athletics or business, the ability between two people relatively equal quite frequently. It's the one who works harder that succeeds. Speaking of working harder, our Indianapolis Indians are down in spring training. We are not affected by the Major League Baseball lockout of the players, although I think that's going to end today. I'm pretty sure it's going to end today. I'd say tomorrow at the latest. They had a new hang-up, and that was the international draft. They resolved that this morning. So anyway, regardless, we'll play April 5th. Tuesday night, April 5th at Victory Field. And I'm pretty certain we will open before the major leagues because of this lockout, even if it's settled, because they need 3 or 4 weeks of spring training. They were supposed to open March 29th, but I think they'll be opening later. Maybe they can open on the 6th or 7th, but we will open on the 5th. Victory Field will again be the place to be. We celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. 25th anniversary, and the ballpark still looks brand new because of the great job of upkeep the Indians management does. Max Schumacher did a very smart thing when he negotiated the lease with the city. And Max, as you know, past president at downtown Kiwanis, and Max will be 90 in October. But when he negotiated the lease with the city, he said to the city, the CIB, we will pay for all the maintenance and upkeep at the ballpark. And we do. And that's why we are in charge of it. That's why it looks spectacular. And we still have people that say that new Indians ballpark and it's 25 years old. So what is new and was new this past year and a huge success was the Elements Financial Club. Absolutely wonderful. For those of you who didn't go, it is on the 3rd floor, the suite level, the broadcast level. In fact, the way things are configured now, the broadcast booth is inside of the Elements Financial Club. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, all-you-can-drink for $85 per person. It opens an hour before the game. It's open an hour and a half into the game for food and until the game ends for drink. It was a huge success, absolutely wonderful. The best example I could give you, in our season now, it used to end Labor Day. It doesn't end until 3.5 weeks later. We're playing 150 games now, with Mondays off again, like last year. We played Wednesday, September 15th. And we had not been used to playing that late, but the schedule's changed. We had a noon game, and it was a school day, and it was raining very heavily. At 11 a.m., that Elements Financial Club was packed. On a weekday, on a pouring rainy day, it was absolutely packed. So if you haven't tried it, I think you need a minimum of 5 people, $85 per person, great food and drink, and it's a wonderful time. For me personally, one of the real nice benefits, side benefits of that was that I'd walk out of the broadcast booth, and I was in the club when I do that, and maybe walking over whether to the restroom or suite or something. People would come up to me and say, hey, Howard, like your brother, all that. And then I never had that kind of interaction before because, you know, the old booth was obviously in the 3rd floor. You don't see many people. When the gates open an hour before game time, I'm already up in the broadcast booth, so I didn't mix with many fans, but I interacted with more fans because of the Elements Financial Club. It was really neat, wonderful thing. So please keep that in mind. We have a $1 menu every Tuesday at Victory Field. The Pittsburgh Pirates will have a lot of Wednesday day games, like the second game of the season, April 6th, will be a day game, 1:30. The Pittsburgh Pirates are our parent team. They're in a rebuilding process. They're not successful at the major league level right now, but they have good young players. The number one guy I'd like you to keep an eye on is O'Neal Cruz, C-R-U-Z. I'm not certain if he'll start the season with Indianapolis or with Pittsburgh yet. We saw him the last couple of weeks of the season. He was terrific, and the Pirates had him, and he played the last 2 days of the season with Pittsburgh. The kid is 6'7", and he's a shortstop. So I don't know if he's going to stick there. There's never been a shortstop that tall, but he can hit. He can hit with power. He can run. He can field. He can throw. and he has a lot of ability. So keep your eye on him. A pitcher to keep your eye on is Roamsy Contreras. We got him in the trade for Jameson Taillon from the Yankees. And Contreras is a guy who has a great arm, great fastball, curveball, slider. Pitched a couple of games for us, pitched with Pittsburgh next to last day of the season. Another guy, I'm not sure if he'll be with us or with Pittsburgh. Now, we're affected, as I said, this lockout in Major League Baseball did not affect us starting the season on time, but it would affect 40-man roster players. So those guys are on the 40-man roster, I believe. So we'll see. It's all going to shake down. It might get settled today in the major leagues and the players, but we'll be playing. And Nick Gonzalez is a fine young second baseman, another guy to keep your eye on. He may not start with us, but I think at some point this year or next year at the latest, you'll see him. He's a good offensive player, #1 pick a couple of years ago. Chad Priester, right-handed pitcher, #1 pick a couple of years ago too. Another fine young prospect. The Pirates are loaded with good young talent. Baseball America ranked their farm system the second best in Major League Baseball. And I think that we'll see some of that this year, more of it next year too. A lot of those guys were in A-ball last year, they'll be in AA this year, and they may progress to AAA Indianapolis. So we're excited about the season. We will have a lot of fun. As the Hall of Famer Willie Stargell, the Pittsburgh Pirates, said, the umpires don't say work ball, they say play ball, so have fun. In just a moment, I'll get to any questions that any of you have. I know we have to be done by 1 o'clock. And get back to work, but it's wonderful to be here. It always is. It should be a good season. I mean, everything is good at Victory Field. I never hear people say a bad word about it. It's that beautiful ballpark, and we're so delighted about that and so happy about that too. We will play 150 games this season, and that's up from 144, and we'll start April 5th. We'll go to the end of September. And 75 home, 75 road. We'll again, like last year, play 6-game series. And we will have every Monday off, except Monday, July 4th. We'll play on that one. I think we have the next day off. So that's the way it is now. And that's how our schedule shakes up. And we're looking forward to it. People said to me, well, how did last season go? And I said, it went wonderfully. He said, what do you mean? The team didn't have a great year? No, but we had a season. Because we had the pandemic, no season in 2020, no season whatsoever. It was devastating. But we bounced back and we had a fine season last year. We were limited in attendance till July 4th, 25% capacity, then 50. But all in all, the fact that we had a season made it a wonderful season. And we were veteran players last year, really veterans. There weren't many younger players till the very end of the season, the last few weeks, when O'Neill Cruz, when Roamsy Contreras, when others joined our ball club. The league structure changed last year, and we had a 14-team international league. We now have 20 teams in the league. Iowa, Omaha, and St. Paul all are in our division now, not only in our league, but in our division, along with Louisville, Toledo, and Columbus. So it's a 7-team division. 20 teams, let's see, that's 14, those 3 is 17. Jacksonville is 18. Jacksonville, and we didn't go there last year. Now you don't go to, with all these teams, you don't go to every place. And Memphis and Nashville have joined our league. They joined our league a year ago. Memphis is the Cardinals, Nashville is the Brewers. So that's the 20 teams. Those other teams came over from the Pacific Coast League, except for Jacksonville, which was a AA team and now a AAA team. St. Paul, too, was independent, and now they're a AAA team. Mike Veck owns St. Paul, and Bill Veck, his father, owned the White Sox. Prior to that, the St. Louis Browns. Owned the White Sox twice, the Cleveland Indians. And I'll never forget reading his autobiography, Veck as in wreck. And he was a great promoter, Bill Veck was, at a time when people weren't promoting in baseball. Now baseball does a lot of marketing, but back then they didn't do marketing at all. By the way, he was the first ever to have fireworks shot off when a home team batter hits a home run. At Comiskey Park, the first time he owned the White Sox in 1959. He did it against the Yankees. The Yankees sat there stunned. The next day, Bob Fischel, the Yankees PR director, got sparklers, and when the Yankees hit a home run, they lit up sparklers in the dugout just to try to get back at Bill Veeck. So, in just a moment, any questions? I gotta tell you a fireworks story. Cincinnati is one, if you're a Reds fan, Cincinnati is one of those ballparks they shoot off fireworks. And, you know, the home team likes it, but picture yourself for a moment as the visiting pitcher. You feel bad enough you've given up a home run. You gotta listen to fireworks on top of that. Well, Mark Portugal is pitching for the Houston Astros against the Reds, and a Reds batter hits a home run. And boom, 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 the fireworks are going off, and Portugal's getting mighty upset. The next batter comes up, and he hits a home run too. Now there's more fireworks, this, smoke and dust. Now Mark Portugal's upset. He's given up 2 straight homers. He's had to listen to fireworks both time. The next batter gets up. A 3rd straight home run. And there go the fireworks again. Now Mark Portugal, the Astros pitcher, is so angry he can't even see straight. Meanwhile, Bob Cluck, the Astros pitching coach, also is upset because his pitcher's given up 3 straight homers. So Cluck is angry. Portugal's angry. And Cluck walks out to the mound to talk to Portugal. And Portugal said, "What are you doing here?" And Cluck said, "I have to give the guy a chance to reload the fireworks." And with that, they both broke up laughing, and Portugal settled down and pitched better. So keep your sense of humor during a challenging time. We have a few minutes. Anybody have any? Yes.
I have a comment and a question. One is that I think the Indians were very smart in how they managed their way through the pandemic with some really innovative programming and opportunities, and really took advantage and added some fun things for the community. I thought.
Well, with the golf and the movie nights.
Movies and yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Well, you're right. Thank you for saying that, and I think you are right. However, that didn't take the place of 70 baseball games.
It absolutely didn't
Right.
take the place, but it kept the ballpark on everyone's radar, and it gave the community something. And
Yes, I agree
really
completely.
nice.
I agree completely.
So my almost baseball.
And by the way, we continued the movie nights last year when the team was on the
You
road.
should. It's
It was
great.
such a good thing, and
Great. So
we-
the golf's.
yes, and that too.
So my almost baseball question is, of all of the people that you've interviewed, who, athlete or not, has been the nicest?
Well, I'll tell you a story where someone extended himself for me. Most of the people are very nice, almost all of them. So now with the Indianapolis Indians, I have a 5-minute pregame show, so I get to know those guys, very nice. One thing that stands out, I'll never forget this, and this was a major league player who I didn't know. Steve Garvey, remember that name, was a fine player with the Dodgers. So he had a squeaky clean reputation. So anyway, in 1975, I was announcing, doing interviews with players for the Mutual Broadcasting System. You remember that? And so this stands out. You know, there's so many nice people, but here's what happened. So I said to Steve, I was doing an interview with a player at every position. I interviewed Joe Morgan at second base. I interviewed Mike Schmidt for third base. Great players, and feature interview. So I wanted to do Steve Garvey for first place. These were 15-minute interviews, not 2, 3, 5 minutes, which you normally have. 15-minute interviews. And so, you know, the player's not getting anything for it, but most of them were cooperative and nice, and I got every position done. So it's a Saturday, the Mets are playing the Dodgers at Shea Stadium in New York, and I approached Steve Garvey. I said, "Steve, can I get you on tape on my recorder for this interview about playing first base for the Mutual Broadcasting System?" He said, "Sure." So we do the 15-minute interview. I said, "Thank you so much." He said, "My pleasure, good luck," all that. So then I get upstairs a little later, I check. The interview didn't come out. The tape was defective. Some things happen once in a while. I didn't do the interview. It didn't work. Well, I'm going to be there the next day, the final day of the series, but how do you ask a guy to spend 15 minutes of his time? You know, he's got to take batting practice, infield practice. He's not getting anything for it. He was nice enough to do it. Should I ask him again? Well, there's one thing to learn. If you don't ask, the answer's always no. So I asked him, I said, Steve, I'm really embarrassed. He said, I understand, these things happen, and we did it again. And that time it worked. So I'll never forget, that's a great question, and I'll never forget that experience with him. And that told me the kind of person he was, that it wasn't just a squeaky clean image, that he was a really good guy.
This
Yes.
is not really a baseball question, but it's a facilities question, I guess. Are there any limitations that you're aware of that are gonna be in place due to COVID or whatever?
We had them last year,
For this coming year?
not that I know of. We'll hear, but in terms of fan attendance, I don't think so. We were at 100% capacity, I think, from July 4th on. We were at 25% when the season started, 50%. Right now, it's wonderful. I mean, how those cases have dropped dramatically, and we're like, it's not there. We don't know what's going to happen. Who knows if there's another variant that'll spring up. But I don't think, as far as wearing masks or anything, right now there's nothing in place. It could change if something happens, but right now, no. Yes.
We're still calling it the Indianapolis Indians, except the Indianapolis Star seems to not want to say Indians. What's the latest on that?
We'll be the Indianapolis Indians, I can assure you, for at least another year. Bruce Schumacher, the board chairman and CEO, is in charge of that. That's his call. He has met with several groups that have had Native Americans on these groups, and so, but I can tell you we'll still be the Indianapolis Indians in 2022.
Good.
Any other comments or questions? I should also tell you, I've always traveled with the team and broadcast the road games live, but this past season I didn't. I did what many of the major league announcers did. When the Indians were on the road, I broadcast the game from a TV monitor at Victory Field. And at the start of this season, I'll be doing that again. I'm not sure if we'll do that the whole season, we'll see. Most of the major league clubs did that. Funny thing happened with the Yankees, I was sharing with the story. The Yankees were on the road, and John Sterling, their radio play-by-play announcer, was announcing the game from the Yankee Stadium broadcast booth and watching the monitor in the booth. And a Yankee batter hit a home run, and John Sterling used his home run call. It is high, it is far, it is gone. Home run. The guy came up a second time. John Sterling said, here's the pitch, swing. There's a long drive. It is high, it is far, it is gone. Then there was dead silence for about 5 seconds. He said, oh, that was a replay of his first at bat I was looking at.
That sounds like a broadcasting Zoom problem.
Well, he didn't realize he was looking at the monitor, which is what you have to look at when that's all you have. He didn't realize it was a replay of his first at bat.
Did you ever used to do that, you know how before, you could watch it on a monitor and you'd be reading it off the ticker tape kind of thing, taking it off the.
That's a recreation.
Yeah, the recreation.
When I got those were done here in the 60s. Luke Walton did them in the 50s and 60s. The year before I got here, 1973, was the first time the announcer ever traveled to road games. They used to recreate them. We didn't have broadcasts in the 60s all the time. Those were some tough times for the Indians, a lot of red ink. But I never did that, although I did it actually a little bit last year because the monitor broke in the TV. We weren't getting the feed, so I had to recreate. I knew what was happening. And that's an exercise in creativity. When you recreate a game, for those of you who don't know, you're not at the game, you're in a studio, and you'll get ground ball to shortstop, and then you have to call it. Ronald Reagan actually did the Chicago Cub games recreated on WHO in Des Moines, back when he was a sportscaster. And he said, the one thing I never did, I never said it was a beautiful day for baseball, because if the ticker broke, I'd say, oh, it's raining and we're gonna have a delay right now and all that. So, but that wasn't, when I got the Indianapolis job, I almost went to Spokane before that. Fortunately, I came here, worked out. But if I had gone to Spokane, I was gonna recreate 40 games and not travel the entire time. The games in Hawaii had a team back then they weren't gonna send the announcer to. Recreating a game is a real good exercise in creativity because you get fly ball to center field. You can have the center fielder making a routine play if you want. You can have him making a great play if you want. That's up to you. So the first baseball I heard, the Giant games were being recreated and the announcer was Les Kiter, and any time he had a fly ball to center, he had Willie Mays, who was the greatest, making a great catch all the time. Oh, so, but you gotta be careful. Because the ticker could break. But I've never done it full time. I did it a few times last year when the monitor wasn't working. I got what happened and recreating the games and exercising creativity. And it's not a bad thing for an announcer to learn. When I first started, Marv Bates, who was the voice of the Evansville Triplets, was recreating road games. And he had all the sound effects. He went on the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder. He had a, hey, popcorn. He had a vendor and saying he had a crack. Isn't the crack of the bat a beautiful thing to hear on radio? That he had the crack of the bat and all that, and Marv did a nice job with that. And the other, by the way, tragically, I'll never forget this night. It was December 1977. Marv was also the voice of University of Evansville basketball, and he was killed in that plane crash. I lost two friends there. The other guy was Greg Knipping, who was the sports information director. He was the sports information director at Purdue. That's like a media relations director. And his wife was from Evansville, so he took the Evansville job that summer and was in the plane crash. It was a terrible thing. But Marv was a very nice man, very good guy, and had all those recreations, sound effects. Any other comments or questions from anybody? If you're in the Elements Financial Club, here's the way I'd put it. Let's say this whole room is the club. It's about that size. And then enclosed right here is the broadcast booth. So when I step out of the booth, I'm in the club and I see it. I don't eat the food there, but I certainly see everybody in there. And so if you're in that club, I'll look forward to saying hello to you and seeing you at Victory Field. It's always an honor to come here. And you're great people. I'm honored, and I have strong feelings for the club too because of my relationship with Max Schumacher, who was a past president of downtown Kiwanis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Howard. That was fun. Loved your stories.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love baseball. I remember when we used to tear up the grass in my mom's backyard with our baseball team on 48th Street. So to thank you for being a part of us today, we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation. A donation will be made in your honor to Kids Voice of Indiana, whose mission is to serve Indiana's children and families by providing legal education, child advocacy, and family visitation through their programs.
Please don't tell anybody I'm bald, though.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a wonderful program today, good food, and we're finally back in person, which is a real treat. It's no fun. I'm not a computer person, and attending meetings on Zoom is not to my particular liking. So we're back, thank goodness. Thanks again, Howard,
Thank you.
we are adjourned.